All right, everyone, let's dive into what's shaping up to be one of the wildest January weather stories in recent memory. If you think winter has already overstayed its welcome, well, buckle up, because it's not done yet. We're looking at more shots of bitter cold air, fresh snowfall for many parts of the country, and even the potential for another major winter storm before the month is out. So today, I'm going to break it all down for you. I'll cover what's happening right now, what's coming next, and what you need to know to prepare for the rest of this unpredictable month. If you're a weather nerd like me, you're going to love this deep dive. Let's get into it. First, let's talk about what's happening across the country this morning. And let me tell you, it's been historic. We're coming off the heels of a winter storm that will go down in the record books for the Southeast. Yes, you heard that right. The Southeast, states like Georgia, the Carolinas, and even Florida have been hit hard by snow, sleet, and freezing rain over the past few days. And I'm not talking about a light dusting here. I'm talking about serious record-breaking snowfall in areas that almost never see this kind of winter weather. But before we get into the details, hit the subscribe button, like this video, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for your support. Let me put this into perspective for you. Milton, Florida, yes, Florida got 8 inches of snow in a single day. That's the most snow ever recorded in the state for a single day in history. The previous record, gone, completely shattered. Then there's New Orleans, which saw nearly 10 inches of snow in one day. To put that in context, the previous single-day snowfall record for New Orleans was 2.7 inches, set all the way back in 1963. That's over 3 times the old record. And these are just 2 examples. Across the Southeast, dozens of records have fallen because of this storm. Now let's talk about the aftermath. This morning, the radar still shows snow falling in parts of the Carolinas and Georgia. Freezing rain and sleet are hanging around Jacksonville, and there's even a chance for a bit more snow there before this storm finally moves offshore. This system is wrapping up fast. By lunchtime today, most of the Southeast will be done with the snow, and the skies will start clearing. So if you're hoping for more snowflakes, enjoy the last few hours of this storm because it's almost out of here. Speaking of snowfall totals, let's look at how much snow this storm has dumped across the region. I've got a map here that shows reported snow accumulations, and it's incredible. Anywhere you see orange dots, that means at least 8 inches of snowfall. Lafayette, Louisiana saw over 10 inches, and Pensacola, Florida, wasn't far behind with totals near 9 inches. Milton, Florida, leads the pack at 8 inches officially, but we could see that number tick up slightly once all of the measurements are finalized. Southeastern Alabama also got hammered, with widespread reports of 8 to 9 inches of snow. These numbers are mind-blowing for the deep south, where snow of any kind is usually a rare sight. Now, I know a lot of you are probably wondering, when is all this snow going to melt? Well, here's the deal. Temperatures across the Southeast are starting to climb above freezing today, which means the snow will begin to melt pretty quickly. By tomorrow, most areas in Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama will be snow-free, except for maybe a few shaded spots or elevated surfaces. Along the East Coast, the snow might stick around a bit longer, likely melting by Friday. So if you want to build that snowman or snap some photos, do it now because it won't last long. All right, let's shift gears and talk about what's coming next. The weather pattern for the rest of January is going to look very different from what we've seen so far. Right now, we have a trough in the jet stream that's been responsible for all the cold air and snow across the eastern U.S. But by the weekend, that's going to change. The jet stream will lift northward, allowing warm air to build across the Gulf Coast and Southeast. This means a milder, quieter weather pattern for those areas. However, the West Coast will continue to see storm systems moving in, bringing much-needed rain and snow to places like California and the Pacific Northwest. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Early next week, we're watching for a small disturbance that could bring snow to the Midwest and Southern Plains. At this point, it doesn't look like a major event, but if we're going to see another big winter storm this month, it's likely to happen toward the very end of January, think January 29th to 31st. Of course, forecasts this far out are always subject to change, so we'll be keeping a close eye on this and providing updates as needed. Speaking of long-range forecasts, the GFS model is hinting at a potential winter storm in early February. But let me emphasize, this is over 10 days out, so take it with a grain of salt. Forecast models this far ahead can shift significantly. What we do know is that more cold air will continue to pour into the central and eastern U.S. in the coming weeks, with the next big Arctic blast arriving tomorrow. This will bring another round of frigid temperatures to the Great Plains and Midwest, spreading eastward into the weekend. Now, let's take a closer look at the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook. This outlook is particularly interesting because we're starting to see a shift from the cold temperatures that have been dominating the eastern U.S. over the last few weeks. It seems like the warmer air that has been confined mostly to the western part of the country is finally beginning to make its way eastward. I've been talking about this pattern for a while, and it's exciting to see it start to materialize. The western U.S. and parts of the plains have seen above average temperatures for some time, while the East Coast has been stuck in a cold spell. But now, the cold air is starting to retreat, and we're looking at a warmer trend across the eastern half of the U.S., especially in the upper Midwest and northern plains. These regions, which have seen some of the harshest winter weather in recent weeks, are going to experience a drastic shift. It's hard to believe that places like New Orleans saw snowfall during one of the coldest stretches in years. No, in New Orleans, areas like Houston and parts of the Florida Panhandle also saw unprecedented snow accumulations, which is just wild to think about. Meanwhile, here in Virginia, we had a more moderate snowfall, about 3.5 inches, which was just enough to create a beautiful winter scene without causing too much trouble. It was the perfect kind of snow for me, enough to enjoy, but not enough to make things a hassle. When we look at the 6 to 10 day forecast, we can expect the West to stay cooler than usual. This suggests that we might be entering a phase of negative Pacific North American patterns, which means that the eastern U.S. will see some warmer than usual conditions while the western part of the country stays cooler. The Northeast is also going to see a bit of a cool down due to a backdoor cold front that might sneak in. So if you're in the northern part of the country, don't get too comfortable with the warmer temperatures just yet. There's still a chance for some chilly days. As far as precipitation goes, it's looking like the southeast and parts of the mid-Atlantic are in for some wetter than usual conditions, while the Great Lakes, Ohio Valley, and Northeast could see more snow. For those living in these regions, it's a good idea to prepare for the possibility of more snowstorms as we head into the next couple of weeks. I know I've been focusing a lot on the South in my recent updates, and some of you have asked why I've been doing that. The reason is simple. There's been more active weather in those regions lately, so that's where the attention has been. But now I'm starting to shift gears and turn my attention to the 8 to 14 day outlook, which covers a more extended period. This outlook is showing some interesting developments. The trend continues with a warm-up in the plains and Midwest with warmer air spreading eastward while the Northeast is still holding on to some colder air. This outlook is valid from January 30th to February 5th, so it gives us a good glimpse into the early part of February. While we've been forecasting a warm-up for a while, it's still worth noting that the cold weather won't disappear completely during this period. There's always a chance for a few more cold spells, especially as we head into February. When it comes to precipitation, the outlook suggests that the northern U.S. could see above average snowfall during this period. Even though temperatures might not be as cold as they've been in recent weeks, the high levels of precipitation will still be conducive to some significant snowstorms. This is a typical pattern for a La Nina winter, where we see storm systems moving across the country, particularly affecting the Midwest, Great Lakes, and Northeast. The Pacific Northwest is also likely to see more snow, which will be a welcome development for ski resorts in the region. Meanwhile, the Southeast and South Central regions will probably stay dry, which is great news for those areas that have been dealing with some major flooding in the past. Looking further ahead, the 3 to 4 week outlook, which was released a few days ago, shows some interesting trends as well. Early February is expected to see the Southeast Ridge dominate the weather pattern, bringing warmer temperatures to the southern half of the country while the colder air remains across the northern parts of the U.S. This is a pretty typical setup for the beginning of February, and while it's not guaranteed, it's a reasonable prediction based on the current models. Precipitation is also expected to follow the usual pattern for a La Nina year, with snowstorms continuing across the northern U.S. and drier conditions persisting in the southern regions. The long-term outlook for February, March, and April is looking promising for those who are hoping for a milder spring. While this winter has been a bit colder than usual, we're optimistic that we'll see a more moderate spring. The outlook for the eastern U.S. and Gulf Coast looks warmer than usual, while colder air will likely remain confined to the northwest. In terms of precipitation, the northern U.S. will continue to see more storms, while the southern U.S. will remain dry. Over the last few weeks, the temperature trend has been fascinating to watch. From January 2nd to January 22nd, much of the country experienced below average temperatures, especially in the eastern U.S. The plains, Midwest, and Southeast saw temperatures 7 to 10 degrees, sometimes even 15 degrees below normal. This has resulted in some of the coldest stretches we've seen in years, and as expected, it has led to significant snow accumulation in many areas. Looking ahead, tomorrow, Thursday, could bring light snow to parts of the southern U.S., including areas like Delmarva, eastern Virginia, and North Carolina. There's a weak low-pressure system offshore that could bring some light snow to these regions, possibly amounting to half an inch or so. It's not expected to be a major storm, but it's something to keep an eye on if you're in the area. The Bay Area could also see some snow as a result of Bay effect, which could lead to a dusting in some parts of the region. Friday will still be cold in the eastern U.S., but we're going to start seeing warmer air pushing in from the west. Saturday should be a fairly quiet day with no major storms on the horizon, but as the warm air moves eastward, it will start to affect the weather in the central and eastern U.S. By Sunday, we could see showers and thunderstorms moving into Texas and Louisiana, regions that have just had a heavy snowfall recently. The Southwest might also see a storm system, which would be a welcome relief after the wildfires they've been dealing with this year. Snow will continue in the Sierra Nevada mountains, which will be a huge plus for those areas. As we move into next week, Monday will bring continued warm air pushing eastward, though the East Coast will still experience some chill. Snow showers are also possible in parts of the northern plains and Great Lakes. By Wednesday, January 29th, we could see heavier snow moving into the northeast, while thunderstorms continue to affect the southeast. To sum it up, the revolving door weather pattern looks like it will continue for a while, bringing us back and forth between cold fronts and warm spells. Stay tuned for more updates as we continue to track the shifts in the weather.